The forest was quiet that night. The moonlight fell on tall pine trees and cold wind moved through the branches. Far from any town, a man worked alone among the shadows. His name was Evan Brooks, a giant of a man, strong arms, rough beard, and eyes tired from years of chopping wood. The mountains were his home. He liked the silence, the smell of wood, and the peace that only nature gave him. But that night something felt wrong. Evan stopped his chainsaw and looked up. The air had changed, heavy and still. Even the usual forest sounds, the owls and the rustling leaves, had gone quiet. Then he saw it. High in the sky above the mountain ridge, 3 lights moved fast, too fast to be planes. They danced across the stars like fireflies, then stopped all at once. He rubbed his eyes. "What in the world?" he whispered. Suddenly, the lights flashed bright white, blinding him for a moment. When his vision cleared, the lights were gone. Only the whisper of wind remained. Evan shrugged it off. Maybe some weather balloon, he thought. But deep inside, he felt something was watching him. He went back to cutting wood, but after a few minutes, his chainsaw sputtered and died. He frowned, checked the fuel while it was still full. He pulled the cord again. Nothing. The machine refused to start. Then the generator behind him shut off too. The forest went completely dark. A strange buzzing sound came from the trees, soft like tiny wings. Evan turned with his flashlight, the beam shaking in his big hand. "Who's there?" he called out. No answer. Then he heard whispers, not like wind. These were words, quiet and fast, but not in any language he knew. He moved the light slowly, heart pounding. Behind a fallen log, 2 small shadows moved. At first he thought they were animals, but then they stepped into the light. They were 2 tiny beings, no taller than a coffee mug. Their skin glowed faintly blue and their eyes were large and silver. They looked exactly alike, small twins with thin, shimmering suits. One of them held the other's hand tightly. Evan froze, mouth open. The little one stepped forward and raised both hands. Its voice was high but clear. "Please and help us," Evan blinked. What are you?" The second tiny being shook its head fast. "No time, they are coming." Before he could ask who they were, the ground under him began to shake. The trees groaned. A low hum filled the air, like the sky itself was alive. Evan looked up, and through the treetops he saw a beam of red light moving between the clouds, scanning the forest floor. The little twin screamed softly and hid behind his boot. "Hide us, please." Evan's instincts kicked in. He didn't know what they were, but they looked terrified. He crouched down, scooped them gently into his huge hand, and ran toward his cabin 1/2 mile away through the thick woods. Branches slapped his face as he ran, boots thudding against the dirt. Behind him, the red beam grew brighter. He could feel heat on his back. Something was chasing them, something big. He reached his cabin, slammed the door, and dropped the heavy metal bar across it. Breathing hard, he placed the 2 tiny creatures on the kitchen table. They were shaking, glowing softly like little stars. Evan stared at them, still catching his breath. "Okay, you've got about 10 seconds to explain what's going on." The twin with shorter hair stepped forward. "My name is Lyra. This is my brother Lumo. We are from far away. A place your kind has never seen." Evan blinked. "You're aliens?" Lyra nodded fast. "Explorers. Our ship crashed nearby. The hunters found us." "Hunters!" he repeated. Lumo pointed toward the window, voice trembling. "They kill our kind. They will kill you too, if they find us here." Evan turned toward the window. The red light outside moved slowly between the trees. A deep metallic sound echoed, a machine searching. His heart pounded. He turned off all lamps and whispered in D, "Stay quiet." The cabin filled with darkness. Only the glow from the tiny twins lit the wooden walls faintly. Outside, the sound of heavy footsteps drew closer. Not human footsteps, but something mechanical. The porch boards creaked. Lyra grabbed Evan's thumb and whispered, "They can smell fear." Evan swallowed hard and grabbed his old hunting axe. "Good thing I don't scare easy." The sound outside stopped. For a few seconds there was silence, the kind that freezes the soul. Then a loud knock shook the cabin door. Bam, bam, bam. The twins hid behind a coffee cup. Evan tightened his grip on the axe. "If that's a prank," he whispered, "it's the worst one I've seen." Another sound followed, not knocking this time, but a deep metallic growl. And then slowly, The door creaked open by itself. A blinding red light filled the room. Evan raised his axe, eyes wide, as the two tiny twins screamed in terror. The night in the woods had only just begun. The red light flooded the small cabin, glowing through every crack and corner. Evan froze, holding his axe high. The two tiny twins hid behind a tin cup on the table, their glowing eyes full of fear. Outside, something moved, slow, heavy, and cold. A tall shadow stood in the doorway. Its shape was not human. It was too thin, too long, and its movements were too smooth. The air smelled like burnt metal. Evan took a deep breath and whispered, "Stay down." The twins didn't move. Their small hands held each other tightly. The shadow stepped inside. Its eyes, two red circles, scanned the room with a quiet hum. The thing made no sound except the faint electric buzz coming from its chest. Evan's heart pounded so loud he feared it would give them away. Then, without warning, the strange light flickered. The red eyes blinked, and the thing turned its head toward the table, toward the twins. Evan acted fast. He swung his axe with all his strength, hitting the door frame just above the creature's head. Wood splintered and fell. The sound echoed through the forest. The red light blinked wildly, and the creature backed away for a second. Evan kicked the door shut and threw himself against it, breathing hard. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the light outside faded. The buzzing sound moved away into the trees, disappearing into the night. The cabin was dark again. Evan stayed silent for a long moment, listening. Nothing. Only the sound of wind. He finally lowered his axe and turned toward the twins. "You two better start talking," he said quietly. The little aliens slowly stepped out from behind the cup. Their glow was dimmer now, maybe from fear or exhaustion. Lyra spoke first. "That was one of them. A hunter drone. It scans for our life energy," Lumo added softly. "They never stop until they find us." Evan rubbed his face. "And now they know where I live. Great." Lyra looked down, ashamed. "We didn't mean to bring danger to you. But you saved us." "Thank you," he sighed. "Yeah, well, I'm not sure how long I can keep doing that." He walked over to his shelf and grabbed a flashlight. "You said you're from another world. What are you doing here?" Lumo looked at his sister, then back at Evan. "We were explorers. We came to study your planet's forests. But our ship was hit by a hunter patrol. We crashed here 3 nights ago." Evan frowned. "So those things, hunters, they're after you?" "Yes," Lyra said. "They destroy any of us who travel outside our galaxy. They believe no world should mix with another." "That's insane," Evan muttered. "You come here to explore and they just hunt you down?" Lumo nodded sadly. "We ran until we found you. You were the only living being nearby." Evan looked around his cabin. It was small. 1 bed, 1 table, and old walls full of cracks. Not exactly the best hiding place. Still, he couldn't leave them out there. He picked up a metal lunchbox from his shelf and opened it. "You can hide in here for now. The lining's lid. Maybe it'll block whatever they use to find you." The twins looked at each other, surprised. "You would help us?" Lyra asked softly. Evan gave a short laugh. "I don't usually turn away people who ask for help, no matter how small they are." The twins climbed inside the box, fitting perfectly. They looked almost like little dolls sitting inside a lunch tin. Evan closed the lid halfway so they could still breathe. He turned off the lights, sat by the window, and waited. Hours passed. The forest outside stayed quiet, but something about the silence felt wrong. The night was too still, too heavy. Evan's eyelids started to close when a soft beeping sound filled the room. The lunchbox was glowing faint blue. He opened it quickly. Lyra looked up at him. "They're scanning again," she whispered. "They know we are still here," Evan frowned. "Then we need to move before they come back." He packed a bag with some food, his axe, and a radio jammer he used to block signals when logging. He placed the lunchbox carefully inside the bag. "We're going to the old watchtower. It has a metal roof. Maybe it'll block their scans." Lyra looked worried. "It's dangerous outside," Evan smiled faintly. "It's dangerous in here, too." He opened the door slowly. The forest was dark, but the stars above shone bright. In the distance, red lights blinked between the tree. The hunters were searching again. He stepped out quietly, his boots sinking into the cold earth. Every step was careful. Every sound made his heart race. Lyra whispered from inside the bag. "You shouldn't help us, human." "They'll hurt you." Evan smiled under his breath. "They can try." Far away, the red lights grew brighter. The forest came alive with the sound of machines moving through the dark. Evan tightened his grip on the axe. "Let's see what these hunters are made of." The wind howled through the trees, and somewhere deep in the forest, something metallic roared. The night had only begun its hunt, and Evan Brooks was ready for it. The forest was not quiet anymore. The night was alive with strange sounds, low hums, mechanical clicks, and the faint crackle of energy cutting through the air. Evan Brooks moved carefully through the trees, his heavy boots barely touching the ground. The old backpack on his shoulders glowed faint blue from inside. The tiny alien twins, Lyra and Lumo, were hiding inside, whispering to each other in fear. Every few seconds, Evan stopped and listened. He could hear them, the hunters. Machines walking on metal legs, scanning the forest floor with bright red lights. The cold air stung his face as he whispered, "We're almost there. The old watchtower's up ahead." But Lyra's small voice trembled from the bag. "No, Evan, they're getting closer." He glanced behind. The forest glowed with moving red beams, slicing through the mist like sharp knives. The hunters were spreading out. He needed to move fast. When he reached the base of the watchtower, he stopped. The structure was old, built from iron and rusted wood creaking in the wind. But to Evan it was perfect. "Metal roof," he muttered. "Thick walls. They can't scan through this." He kicked open the door and went inside. Dust and old spider webs hung from the corners. He set the backpack down gently on a table. The twins crawled out, their small glowing faces full of worry. Lumo looked up at him. "You shouldn't have come back for us." Evan crossed his arms. "I couldn't just leave you to get hunted like animals." Lyra stepped closer, her tiny eyes reflecting the dim light. "You are strange for a human. You risk your life for beings you don't even know." Evan gave a small smile. "Well, you two showed up in my forest. Guess that makes you my problem." Suddenly, the radio on the wall crackled to life. Static hissed through the speaker. "Unidentified energy detected," said a cold robotic voice. Lyra's glow dimmed. "They found us." Before Evan could react, the door behind him exploded inward. Splinters flew through the air. Standing in the doorway was a large metallic creature, taller than any man, with armor that shimmered like black glass. Its head was shaped like a helmet with two glowing red eyes that never blinked. Evan grabbed his axe. "So you're the ones chasing my guests?" The hunter tilted its head. "Surrender life forms. Resistance will result in termination," Lumo whispered. "Evan, don't fight it. It's too strong." But Evan's heart was pounding too loud to hear reason. He raised his axe as the hunter took one slow step forward, its metal claws digging into the wood. The room shook with every movement. Then Evan noticed something. The creature's chest had a small opening, a pulsing red core glowing like a heartbeat. He grinned. "Looks like your power's showing, metalhead." The hunter fired a beam of red light, missing him by inches. Evan dived behind the table, grabbed his old radio jammer, and twisted the dial. The device screamed with static, sending waves of interference through the air. The hunter stopped moving for a second, its lights flickering. Lyra gasped. "It's confused. You're jamming its sensors." Evan didn't wait. He ran forward, swinging his axe with all his might. The blade hit the creature's chest, sparks flying. The hunter staggered back, its red core flashing wildly, but it wasn't done. Its claw struck out, hitting Evan in the side and throwing him across the room. He hit the wall hard, groaning in pain. "Evan!" Lyra shouted, her voice tiny but full of panic. The hunter raised its arm to strike again. But this time Lumo and Lyra acted together. Their small hands glowed bright, sending a surge of blue energy into the creature's sensors. The hunter froze mid-strike, its red eyes flickering to white. Evan forced himself to stand. His ribs ached, but he managed to lift the axe again. "You picked the wrong forest," he growled. He swung once more, hard. The axe hit the glowing red core, splitting it open. A burst of light filled the room. The hunter screeched, sparks shooting from its joints, then collapsed into a pile of smoking metal. The twins ran to him, glowing brighter now. "You did it!" Lumo cried. Evan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "Yeah. But something tells me that was just one of them." Outside, more red lights appeared in the trees. The ground trembled as several heavy shapes moved closer. Lyra looked up at him, her face pale. "The others are coming." "The hunters never send just one." Evan looked at his broken axe and sighed. "Then we better find a new plan fast." He walked to the window and saw dozens of red lights spreading through the forest like angry stars moving toward them. Lyra's voice was small, but steady. "There is one way to call our people. A signal tower from your old world satellites. If we reach it, maybe they can find us before the hunters do." Evan smiled weakly. "So a road trip through hell, huh?" Lumo nodded. "Through the forest of death." Evan grabbed his bag again, the axe handle sticking out of it like a weapon of war. "Good," he said. "That's my kind of road." As they stepped out into the cold night, the first hunter behind them twitched back to life, one red eye flickering in the dark. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun. The cold mountain wind hit Evan's face as he ran through the forest, his heavy boots pounding the ground. The two tiny alien twins, Lyra and Lumo, clung to his backpack, their glowing eyes watching every shadow. Behind them, the woods burned faint red. The hunters were still coming. Evan's breath was short, but his will was strong. He'd fought storms, bears, and winters that could freeze bone, but nothing like this. Still, something deep inside him, something he didn't understand, pushed him forward. After what felt like hours, they reached a narrow canyon. The air was thick with fog, and the sound of running water echoed nearby. Evan slowed down and leaned against a rock, breathing hard. Lyra crawled out from his bag, her small face full of worry. "You're hurt," she said softly. Evan looked down. A faint glow pulsed on his forearm where Lyra had touched him during the fight with the hunter. The skin wasn't bleeding, but a thin line of light ran beneath it, moving like living fire. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Lumo's voice shook. "When you fought for us, Lyra used our energy to protect you. It bonded with your body. It's changing you." Evan raised his arm. The light pulsed faster, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. He should have been afraid, but somehow he felt stronger, awake in a way he'd never felt before. "I don't feel sick," he said. "Actually, I feel alive." Lyra's eyes widened. "That's not normal. Human bodies can't hold that power for long. If it grows too strong, it could burn you from the inside." Evan chuckled quietly. "I'll take my chances." Beats getting cut in half by a metal monster. A deep rumble came from the distance, engines not thunder. The hunters were closing in again. Their red searchlights flickered through the fog. Evan turned toward the twins. "You said something about a signal tower?" Lumo nodded. "It's old, from your world's first satellites, but we can use its transmitter to reach our ship. It's across this canyon near the frozen lake." Evan glanced down the rocky path. It was narrow, steep, and full of ice. "Figures," he muttered. "You aliens sure know how to pick hiding spots." He helped the twins climb back into his bag and began the descent. Each step echoed softly in the canyon, the fog swallowing sound. But then something strange happened. The mark on his arm started to glow brighter. Evan stopped. His vision sharpened. The fog didn't seem so thick anymore. He could hear the hunter's footsteps miles away, every metal click echoing in his head. He blinked in disbelief. "I can hear them. I can see through the mist," Lyra gasped. "It's happening faster than I thought." Evan smiled. "Good. Gives me an advantage." But before they could move again, a loud crash echoed above them. A hunter dropped down from the cliff, landing just a few feet away. Its eyes glowed red and its armor gleamed like black glass. Evan's muscles tensed. The mark on his arm flared bright blue. The hunter raised its weapon. "Surrender." Target locked. Evan didn't wait. He moved, and fast. Faster than any normal human could. His hand grabbed a sharp branch from the ground and he hurled it like a spear. It struck the hunter's head, cracking its armor. The creature roared and fired a beam of light. Evan dodged, the blast missing by inches. He felt heat scorch the rocks beside him, but he didn't stop. His new strength pushed him forward. He jumped higher, struck harder, fought like a wild storm. The hunter swung its metal arm, but Evan caught it midair and twisted. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. With one final push, he slammed the creature into the rocks, its red eyes flickering out. For a moment, everything was silent again. Evan stood still, chest heaving, staring at his glowing arm. The light slowly dimmed, but he could still feel the energy flowing inside him. Hot, alive, and dangerous. Lumo's voice was small. Evan, you're becoming like us. Evan frowned. I don't know what that means, kid. But if it helps keep you safe, I'll take it. Lyra climbed up to his shoulder and looked at the mark. You're connected now. If you die, the link between our worlds breaks. That's why the hunters won't stop. They'll come for you too. Evan laughed dryly. Then let them come. They continued through the canyon until the fog began to lift. In the distance, the frozen lake glowed silver under the moonlight, and beyond it the broken satellite tower stood tall and lonely. Lyra pointed. That's it. The tower. But just as hope flickered in their eyes, a deep rumbling shook the ground. The ice on the lake cracked. Evan turned to see dark shapes rising from beneath the frozen surface. More hunters crawling out like metal insects, their red lights glowing in the mist. Lumo whispered in terror. They found us again. Evan lifted his axe, his glowing arm pulsing brighter with every heartbeat. Then this time, he said calmly, we fight on my ground. The mark on his arm blazed like fire, lighting up the night. The hunter stepped forward, and the human with alien power prepared to show the galaxy what a man could do. Snow drifted across the frozen lake like soft white ash. The moonlight shimmered on the ice, turning the whole valley into silver glass. Evan Brooks stood at the edge of that lake, breathing clouds of frost into the night air. In one hand, he held his axe. In the other, his strange glowing arm pulsed with light like a beating heart. Behind him, Lyra and Lumo peeked from his bag, their blue glow dim under the cold. They're coming, Lyra whispered. Evan didn't answer. He could already hear them, the low metallic hum of machines waking under the ice. Cracks spread across the frozen surface as red lights blinked from beneath. One by one, tall metal hunters rose out of the lake, dripping ice and steam. Their sharp legs cut through the frozen ground. Their glowing eyes locked on him. There were 5 of them. Evan's pulse slowed. He felt no fear now, and only focus. The strange power inside him hummed like electricity in his veins. His senses were sharper than ever. He could see each hunter's movement before it happened, feel the vibration of their engines through the air. Lumo's voice trembled. You can't fight them all. Evan smiled slightly. Watch me. The first hunter lunged forward, firing a beam of red energy. Evan dived sideways, rolling behind a fallen log. The beam hit a tree, turning it to ash. Snow exploded around him. He jumped up and hurled his axe. It spun through the air like a silver streak and hit the hunter square in the chest. Sparks flew and the machine stumbled back, roaring in a mechanical voice. Before it could recover, Evan ran forward and punched it, his glowing fist hitting the metal so hard that cracks formed in its armor. The alien energy in his arm burned through the machine, melting its core. The hunter collapsed into the snow, smoke pouring from its joints, but the others were closing in fast. Evan pulled his axe free just as 2 more hunters opened fire. Red beams sliced through the night, lighting up the forest like lightning. He dashed behind a tree, feeling the bark burn behind him. The ground shook with each step of the machines. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small metal device and the radio jammer. He twisted the dial to maximum. The device screeched and the hunters staggered, their red lights flickering. Now, Lyra shouted. Evan sprinted forward, his boots sliding on the ice. He swung the axe in a wide arc, cutting through one hunter's leg. The creature fell, crashing onto the lake and shattering the ice beneath it. Freezing water sprayed up, and the hunter sank with a metallic scream. The 4th hunter grabbed Evan's shoulder with its clawed hand, lifting him off the ground. Its grip was crushing, sparks flying as its joints strained. Terminate, it said in a voice that was half machine, half monster. Evan gritted his teeth. Not today. The glow on his arm flared blindingly bright. A surge of energy blasted out, throwing the hunter backward like a broken toy. It hit the ground so hard that the snow lifted in a wave. Evan landed on his knees, breathing hard, steam rising from his skin. The power was burning through him now, wild, hot, and alive. Lyra ran to his side, her small face glowing with worry. You're using too much. It's hurting you. Evan looked at her and smiled weakly. Pain means I'm still fighting. The last hunter stepped forward, taller than the others, its armor blacker than night. It carried a long blade that shimmered red. The air around it vibrated with energy. This one was no ordinary machine, it was their leader. Evan stood up slowly, blood on his lip, light on his arm. Let's finish this. The hunter rushed forward, slashing fast. Evan blocked with his axe and sparks flying as metal met metal. The sound was deafening. He dodged another strike and swung back, his axe glowing blue from the energy flowing through him. The impact sent shockwaves through the ice, cracking it like glass. The hunter stabbed at him again, and the blade grazed his shoulder, leaving a burning mark. Evan roared in pain, then drove his glowing fist straight into the creature's chest. The red core inside it pulsed wildly. "Goodbye," he growled. He ripped the core out with one hand and threw it into the air. Lyra and Lumo raised their tiny hands together, releasing a surge of blue light that hit the core midair. It exploded in a flash that lit up the entire forest. When the light faded, the hunters were gone. Only broken metal and steam remained. Evan dropped to one knee, breathing hard, his skin steaming from the cold and the power that burned within him. His axe was broken, his coat torn, but his spirit stood unshaken. Lyra flew up to his shoulder, placing her tiny hand on his cheek. "You saved us again." He looked at her and smiled faintly. "Just doing what humans do best and surviving." Lumo's voice was quiet but full of hope. "We can reach the signal tower now. Maybe our ship will find us before the hunters send more." Evan looked toward the horizon. The old satellite tower rose far away, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Then let's move," he said, standing tall. But as they started walking, the ice behind them cracked once more. Beneath the shattered lake, a faint red light began to glow again. Lyra turned, her voice trembling. "Evan, it's not over." He stared back at the glowing water, the mark on his arm flickering with blue fire. "No," he said quietly, "it's just getting started." The frozen forest was silent again. The red glow beneath the lake had faded, and the night was calm, too calm. Evan Brooks walked through the snow with the twins resting on his shoulder, the cold wind biting at his face. His broken axe hung from his belt, and his glowing arm pulsed faintly under his torn sleeve. Every muscle in his body ached, but he kept walking. The old satellite tower stood in the distance like a skeleton against the stars, its rusty frame half buried in snow. That was their only hope now. Lyra's tiny voice broke the silence. "We're close. Just a few more miles," Evan grunted. "Good, because I'm running out of energy bars and patience." Lumo laughed softly, but his voice sounded nervous. "You fought like a god, Evan. The hunters will think twice before chasing us again." Evan shook his head. "They'll come back. Machines don't get scared. They get smarter." The path grew steeper as they climbed toward the tower. The higher they went, the stronger the wind blew. The structure creaked, metal groaning like a giant waking from sleep. It was ancient, built by humans long before Evan was born. But still, it stood tall. Inside, the air smelled of rust and dust. Broken screens and tangled wires covered the control room. Evan brushed snow off a panel and turned to the twins. "All right, geniuses. Tell me what to do." Lyra and Lumo jumped onto the console, their hands glowing as they touched the old machinery. Sparks danced between their fingers and the screens flickered to life. Strange symbols flashed across the glass. "It's working," Lyra said, smiling faintly. "We can send a signal now." Evan leaned against the wall, watching them. "So your people will pick you up and take you home?" Lumo hesitated before answering. "Yes." "Home?" Something in his tone made Evan frown. "You don't sound too happy about that." Before Lumo could reply, a loud hum filled the tower. The screen turned from blue to red, and a deep voice spoke in a language Evan couldn't understand. Lyra's glow dimmed. "No," she whispered. "They traced us again." Evan's hand went to his axe handle. "The hunters?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, that's not them." The doors of the tower burst open and cold wind rushed in. A blinding light filled the room. From it stepped a tall figure, not a hunter but something else. It looked alive, wearing silver armor that shimmered with light. Its face was calm, almost human, but its eyes glowed gold. "Children of Lithera," the figure said in a deep echoing voice, "you have broken the law of exile." Lyra and Lumo froze in terror. Evan stepped forward, axe ready. "Who the hell are you?" The figure looked at him almost with pity. "I am Aelor, guardian of the Litheran fleet. Those twins you protect are not explorers. They are fugitives," Evan frowned. "That's a lie." Aelor's golden eyes narrowed. "Is it? Ask them yourself." Evan turned to the twins. They looked small, smaller than ever. Lyra's voice trembled. "Evan, we didn't tell you everything." Lumo nodded slowly. "We weren't sent here to explore. We escaped. Our people started the war. The hunters are not monsters, and they were built to stop us. The air felt heavier. Evan stared at them, his jaw tight. You mean, I've been fighting their side? Lyra's eyes filled with tears that shimmered like glass. We never wanted this. We were born during the war. We just wanted peace. But when we tried to stop the fighting, our people marked us as traitors. The hunters were sent to erase us. Evan looked down, silent. The truth hit him hard. He had killed machines that were protecting the galaxy, all because he believed he was saving the innocent. Aelor stepped closer. Now you understand. Step aside, human. Let us take them. They must answer for what they have done. Evan clenched his fists. The light on his arm flared bright blue. I don't care who's right or wrong. They asked me for help, and I keep my word. Aelor's calm expression hardened. Then you are part of their crime. Before anyone could move, the tower shook violently. The ground trembled as red beams of light appeared in the forest below. The hunters had arrived, hundreds of them marching through the snow. Evan looked out the window and cursed. Great, now we've got both sides after us. Lyra and Lumo looked up at him, voices shaking. Evan, go. Save yourself. We caused this. He shook his head. No, we finished this together. The mark on his arm began to spread, crawling up to his shoulder. The power inside him was changing, stronger, brighter, almost alive. Aelor looked at him with awe. You carry their essence. That power will destroy you. Evan smiled grimly. Then I better make it count. Outside, the hunters surrounded the tower, their red eyes glowing through the snow. Inside, the twins began to cry, small, silent tears of fear and guilt. Evan raised his glowing arm, light filling the room like lightning. You said I was part of their crime, he said, eyes burning blue. Then I'll be the punishment too. The wind howled through the cracks of the old tower as both enemies, the hunters and the Lytheran guardian, closed in. And there, in the middle of that storm, stood one human who refused to choose a side. The old satellite tower shook as the night exploded with light. Red beams from the hunters cut through the snow, while golden fire from Aelor's armor burned across the sky. Between them stood one man, Evan Brooks, a human lumberjack who once only cared about trees and quiet nights. Now he was the only thing standing between two alien powers ready to destroy each other. Snow whipped through the open tower windows. Lyra and Lumo hid behind a broken console, their small glowing hands clasped together. Evan, stop, Lyra shouted. You can't fight them all. But Evan didn't stop. His arm glowed brighter than ever, blue light crawling up to his neck, spreading across his chest like veins of lightning. His breath came out in white steam, but his eyes burned like fire. He turned toward Aelor, the silver-armored guardian. You said I was part of their crime. Then you'll have to take me down first. Aelor's voice was calm but heavy. You are a brave creature, human. But bravery will not save you. Maybe not, Evan said, gripping his axe, but it might save them. The air cracked. Aelor raised his golden staff and sent a beam of light at him. Evan jumped aside, the blast tearing through the tower wall and scattering metal everywhere. Snow and wind flooded in. Evan charged forward, his glowing axe meeting the golden blade with a sound like thunder. Sparks flew. Outside, the hunters surrounded the tower, their red eyes glowing through the storm. Then, as if one mind controlled them, they began to fire upward, hundreds of red beams hitting the tower. The structure screamed under the pressure, metal bending like paper. Evan, Lumo cried. They'll destroy everything. Evan gritted his teeth, pushing back against Aelor's blade. Then we take the fight outside. He kicked Aelor backward, turned, and smashed through the wall with his glowing shoulder. The two fell from the tower into the snow below. The ground shook as they landed. Hunters turned toward them instantly. Evan stood up, his clothes torn, his arm shining like a torch in the storm. Aelor rose too, golden armor steaming in the cold. For a heartbeat, both looked at each other, two beings from different worlds bound by duty, fate, and power. Then the hunters attacked. Evan moved like lightning. The mark's energy had made him faster, stronger, beyond human. He swung his axe in wide arcs, the blue light slicing through metal. One by one, the hunters fell. But for each one destroyed, two more took its place. Aelor fought too, golden strikes cutting through the machines with deadly grace. But he wasn't fighting to help Evan. He was clearing a path to the twins. Lyra saw it from the broken tower above. He's going for us. Lumo looked at her. Then we must help him, before he dies because of us. They flew down from the tower, their small bodies surrounded by blue light. Together they hovered above the battlefield and joined hands. The air around them shimmered. Aelor saw them and shouted, "Stop! You'll destroy yourselves!" But they didn't stop. A bright blue beam shot from their joined hands, connecting with Evan's glowing arm. For a moment the world went silent. Then everything exploded in light. The hunters froze mid-step. Their red eyes went dark. The golden light around Aelor flickered. Evan felt the energy pour through him, too much to control. His heart pounded like thunder. He looked up at the twins floating in the light, their faces calm and peaceful. "What are you doing?" he shouted. Lyra smiled sadly. "Giving you what we cannot keep and our power, our life." "No." Evan roared, but it was too late. The twins' small bodies dissolved into light, merging completely with him. The mark on his skin blazed brighter than the sun. Aelor fell to one knee, shielding his eyes. Impossible. A human cannot hold such power. Evan looked at his hands, glowing with both blue and gold. He could feel everything, every vibration in the earth, every whisper in the wind, every spark of life. The pain was unbearable, but beneath it there was peace. He turned toward the frozen army of hunters. "Go home," he said softly. His voice echoed like thunder. The hunters obeyed. Their red lights blinked out, and they sank into the snow one by one, silent forever. Then Evan looked at Aelor. "Your war ends here." Aelor raised his head, awe and sorrow in his eyes. "You have become something neither human nor Lytheran. You are a bridge between worlds," Evan smiled faintly. "I'm just a man with an axe." The light around him began to fade. His body was breaking apart, turning into the same glowing dust as the twins. The power was leaving him, spreading into the air like stars. "Evan," Aelor called, stepping closer. "Your name will be remembered among the stars." But Evan only shook his head. Names don't matter. What matters is that someone fought and didn't run. He looked up one last time at the night sky, calm, quiet, endless. The light from his body rose into the heavens, scattering among the stars like a new constellation. When the glow faded, only the broken axe remained, half buried in the snow. Aelor stood in silence. The storm had stopped. The air was still. In the distance, the first light of dawn touched the mountains. The guardian whispered softly, "Humanity, truly the wildest force in the galaxy." He looked toward the rising sun and vanished into a beam of gold, leaving behind a world forever changed. And from that day on, among alien worlds and distant suns, a legend spread in the story of the giant human lumberjack who fought for the stars.